Around the world, people are watching that ludicrous interview with Vladimir Putin conducted by Tucker Carlson, and we must not fall for this tissue of lies above all for the notion that Putin is somehow fated to succeed in Ukraine. On the contrary, he is doomed to fail. Read about it in the Daily Mail.
This is my video update on this Saturday afternoon, February the 10th. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with Pirate Scholz, the German Chancellor, arriving in D.C. to meet with President Joe Biden and lobby Congress for $61 billion to Ukraine. Basically, what Scholz is doing is he is in D.C. meeting with various senators and House representatives, telling them, look, Germany, we've approved $8 billion to go to Project Ukraine. The EU has approved $50 billion over 4 years to go to Project Ukraine. So it's time for the U.S. to do its part. So Senate, House of Representatives, let's get that $61 billion to the Zelensky regime. That is what Scholz is doing in the United States. And he did sit down with Joe Biden at the Oval Office. And Joe Biden, Scholz next to him, Joe Biden said that if Congress does not approve the $61 billion to Project Ukraine, remember we have a bill now in the Senate that's about to be approved for $95 billion. This package is $95 billion without the southern border. They took out the southern border, and 61 of that $95 billion is earmarked for Project Ukraine. That is about to pass the Senate and then go to the House. So Biden said that if this $61 billion does not get to the Zelensky regime, it will be criminal neglect. Criminal neglect. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. That is the statement from Joe Bidenopoulos, Chris's favorite son. He said the failure of the United States Congress, if it occurs, not to support Ukraine, is close to criminal neglect. It is outrageous, Biden said in the Oval Office in front of a blazing fire with Scholz seated next to him. I'm very happy that in Europe, we made now decisions to get the necessary financial support to the budget, said Scholz, speaking in English. Also that Germany was ready to increase its support with weapons delivery, Scholz added. And hopefully Congress, the House, will follow you and make a decision on giving the necessary support. Biden also decided to give the press, the media in attendance, a bit of a history lesson. I guess he saw the Tucker Carlson Putin interview the other day, and Biden said, you know, Putin's not the only one that can talk about politics, geopolitics, and also get into a little bit of history. So Biden said Kissinger was right when he said, not since Napoleon has Europe looked over its shoulder and worried about Russia up to this day.
Well, especially when I'd like to add another point. The failure of the United States Congress, if it occurs, not to support Ukraine is close to criminal neglect. It is outrageous. Kissinger was right when he said not since Napoleon has Europe not looked over his shoulder and worried about Russia until now.
So that is Biden talking Kissinger, talking Napoleon, talking about how Europe is looking over its shoulder at Russia. Not since Napoleon has this happened. So that was Biden. That was Biden. And Scholz, blazing fire. The fire was blazing. Very romantic, actually. And Scholz, he also decided to weigh in on the Tucker Carlson Vladimir Putin interview. And Scholz said that the interview was a completely absurd story about how the war started. Scholz said there is a very clear cause. That is the desire of the president of Russia to annex part of Ukraine. And all the stories that are told about it do not change the fact that that is exactly the purpose of his imperial efforts, the chancellor added. Scholz went on to say that the fighting could end at any time, but not by Ukraine capitulating, and that conditions for a peaceful solution must be created as soon as possible. So the most unpopular leader in all of Europe, Olaf Scholz, was brought in to the White House, to the Congress, in order to try and pressure the House of Representatives and the Senate to pass the $61 billion to Project Ukraine. And after the meeting, when the meeting was done and Biden talked about the $61 billion to Ukraine, Scholz talked about the Tucker Carlson interview with Vladimir Putin. Biden looked at Scholz and he said, "I heard during that Putin interview that there's another pipeline that you guys can still start up." And Olaf Scholz was like, "Yes, this is true." And Biden said, "Yeah, we're going to have to blow that pipeline up as well." And Scholz was like, "Okay, go ahead." I'm just joking. I don't know if Biden said that to Scholz, but you never know. Maybe Newland or Blinken pulled Scholz aside and said, "You know that pipeline that can still be activated that Putin was talking about the other day? Yeah, we're going to have to blow that one up." Scholz would go along with it. He would have no problem with with that type of statement from the Biden White House. Scholz was in the Biden White House when Biden was talking to the reporters, and he said that the United States is going to have to shut down the Nord Stream pipeline way back before the special military operation, maybe like a couple of weeks actually before the special military operation. And the reporter asked Biden, "How are you going to do that, sir? Mr. President, how are you going to do that when this is a German pipeline?" And Olaf Scholz was standing right next to Biden, and Biden was like, "Yeah, we'll make sure that pipeline is never used again." And Olaf Scholz, he just took it. He took it. "Thank you, sir. May I have another one?" As the famous movie line says. Tell me from what movie that is from. "Thank you, sir. May I have another one?" That's Olaf Scholz. I'll give you a hint. Kevin Bacon was the one that said that line. If you can tell me from what movie that is from, then great. Great. We have similar taste in movies. Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson. He is having a meltdown. He posted on social media, Twitter, TikTok. I don't know where he posted this video, but he has his mobile phone in front of him. A lot of wind going around, and Boris basically said that the entire Tucker Carlson Putin interview was just rubbish. He said it was a tissue of lies. Interesting expression from Boris Johnson. He said it was a tissue of lies. And then he promoted like the Daily Mail or an article that he's going to have in the Daily Mail or something like that. But yeah, Boris is worried. He saw that interview and he saw that Putin completely buried Boris Johnson, as did Tucker Carlson. The whole world now knows. The whole world knows that it was Boris Johnson who scuttled, sabotaged negotiations for ceasefire and for peace in Ukraine in March 2022. Everyone now knows that Boris Johnson was the person that flew to Kiev, and told Zelensky, don't negotiate with Russia, keep on fighting, and we'll give you support and money for as long as it takes. That was Boris Johnson, according to Putin, according to Tucker Carlson, and according to a lot of other sources, to be quite honest. A lot of other sources, including sources in the U.S. government. They have, or sources that were once in the U.S. government, they have written about how Boris Johnson went to Kiev and he messed things up for the ceasefire and the peace process. Naftali Bennett, the former Prime Minister of Israel, said as much. Let's see. The big question, before I get to Trudeau, the big question is not that Boris went to Kiev and he sabotaged the peace process, the negotiations. The big question is who ordered Boris Johnson to fly to Kiev and sabotage the negotiations? Was it the Biden White House? Was it the CIA? Was it Newland? Was it Blinken? Was it British intel? Was it all of the above? Who told Boris Johnson, get on that plane, go see Zelensky, and tell him to tear up that negotiation peace document, that framework that Zelensky's negotiators had initialed? Who gave Boris the order? That, I think, is the correct question to ask. So Trudeau is also having a meltdown over the Tucker Carlson Vladimir Putin interview because Putin, he buried Trudeau. Boy, did he bury Trudeau when he brought up the whole Canada SS Parliament standing ovation incident that happened. When did that happen? Like 6 months ago? Boy, oh boy, did Putin really, really embarrass Justin Trudeau when he brought that event up. And so Trudeau, he was speaking to the media, and the press, a reporter asked Trudeau about what Putin had told Tucker Carlson. And Trudeau, he said that Canada is going to support Ukraine no matter the cost. He said no matter the cost, Canada is going to support Ukraine. So an interesting statement from Justin Trudeau. No matter how much it costs, Canada is going to support the Zelensky regime for as long as it takes. He said for as long as it takes. And Trudeau told reporters, no one will believe Putin because he uses propaganda. I wonder if that is a true statement. No one is going to believe Putin because he uses propaganda. This is coming from Justin Trudeau.
You've been such an ardent supporter of Ukraine, but there's been a lot of controversy surrounding President Zelensky's visit here, and now we've heard Vladimir Putin use some of that embarrassment in an interview with Tucker Carlson. How does it feel to know that that visit and your office's role in inviting a former Nazi to a reception is creating hardship for an ally?
Vladimir Putin chose to invade a neighboring sovereign country, violating the rights, the sovereignty, the territorial integrity of Ukraine, and violating the rules-based order that underpins the safety, the security of all of us living in democracy, in free democracies around the world. He will, of course, use whatever propaganda he can engage in, but I can tell you, Canadians will not be fooled. Canada stands with Ukraine, not just because we are friends to Ukraine, but because the rules-based order and the system of laws and the UN Charter protect all of us, not just Ukrainians. So we will continue to be there with Ukraine for as much as it takes, for as long as it takes. Unfortunately, we see the lengths to which Russian propaganda will go.
Who's having a meltdown over the fact that the Russian president talked about Trudeau and Zelensky clapping for an SS Waffen soldier. who Trudeau, now we know who Trudeau invited to the event. When a few months back, Trudeau said he didn't invite this guy to the event. I always forget his name. Begins with an H. I forget his name, Hunka or something like that. But Trudeau was like, I didn't invite this guy. And then he got the speaker to fall on his sword, to take the blame for Trudeau and to resign. And last week we found out that Trudeau did indeed invite this guy to the parliament. Oh, man. So now the whole world knows. The whole world knows that Justin Trudeau, he gave a standing ovation to an SS soldier whom he invited to this event with Zelensky next to him. Unbelievable stuff. A lot of meltdowns going on. A whole lot of meltdowns going on. But I have to say that Putin, he really, really buried Boris Johnson, and he really buried Justin Trudeau. Oh, man. I like Putin even more now. Anyway, Commander Syrsky, the new commander of the Ukraine military, he is ready to go. He had his first meeting with the defense minister of Ukraine, and they talked military strategy. And according to the Telegram channel resident, the Ukrainian Telegram channel resident, Syrsky is ready to send more troops into Avdiivka in order to hold the city of Avdiivka as per Zelensky's wishes. So instead of retreating, because Ukraine has lost this city, instead of stopping the horrendous losses that the Ukraine military is taking in Avdiivka, it looks like Syrsky, who is a very aggressive general, who is a commander who the soldiers absolutely dislike, because he sends his troops into the grinder. Instead of retreating and saving his forces to fight another day, Syrsky is going to agree with Zelensky, and he is going to send more troops into Avdiivka so that they can face certain annihilation. And this is exactly what the Russians want. Syrsky is playing right into Russia's hands with this move. So that's Syrsky. That is the new commander of the Ukraine military. And Zelensky, he wants Syrsky to hold on to Avdiivka for as long as the Ukraine military can possibly hold on to this very heavily fortified city. Because for Zelensky, the media optics of retreating from Avdiivka would be catastrophic, could potentially be catastrophic, especially given the debacle with firing Zelensky, the pressure now that he has after firing Zelensky, the fact that Zelensky's having a hard time getting the $61 billion from the United States. And after this very, very successful interview from Tucker Carlson with the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, retreating from Avdiivka now for Zelensky would be an absolute catastrophe. And he knows this. He's obsessed with media optics and the information war. And Zelensky, I am certain that Zelensky is telling Syrsky, just buy me another month. Send as many troops as you need to send into Avdiivka, and just buy me another month, because I cannot afford at this moment in time, given everything that has happened over the past couple of days, I cannot afford to lose Avdiivka or to retreat from Avdiivka. So Syrsky is going to do as what I believe Zelensky is commanding him to do. This is an article from Bloomberg. Zelensky's ugly fight with general exposes split in Ukraine. Fallout coincides with the anniversary of the invasion by Russia. At the same time, Putin gives Tucker Carlson his spin on the war. That's another reason why Zelensky can't retreat from Avdiivka. He can't retreat so close to the 2-year anniversary of the conflict in Ukraine. So Bloomberg, they're basically saying what I just said. Zelensky's fighting with Zaluzhny. Firing Zaluzhny was a complete mess. I've actually seen video of Zaluzhny supporters starting to gather at the Maidan Square. Not a big gathering, maybe 50 to 100 people, but still, you can see some of Zaluzhny's supporters not happy with the firing of Zaluzhny. Zaluzhny has the support of the neo-Nazis in the west of Ukraine. He has the Bandera faction supporting him, and you have this very successful interview from Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin, and you have all of this money that Zelensky just can't seem to unlock in the U.S. Senate and in the Congress. So now is not the right time for Avdiivka to fall. I read an article actually saying that Ukraine is thinking about approaching the IMF to try and get a loan in case this $61 billion is not approved by the Senate and then the House of Representatives. A loan from the IMF for $61 billion? No, never going to happen. Maybe the IMF will give him $5 billion or $10 billion. But the more money the IMF gives to Ukraine, the more the IMF destroys its own charter, its own reputation. Not that the IMF has a very good reputation, but still, the IMF is breaking its own rules by continuing to give money to Ukraine. It already has given something like, or it's about to release something like $900 million to Ukraine. So that's a backup plan from the Ukraine government. If they can't get the $61 billion, they're going to actually go to the IMF. So how about the fallout from Biden's press conference the other day? The train wreck of a press conference that Biden gave the other day, the spontaneous, impromptu press conference from Biden, where he said that the president of Mexico is Syrsky, who is actually the president of Egypt. Oh my God, a very angry Biden, by the way. Actually getting some hard-hitting questions from reporters. And Biden, he did not appreciate the questions that he got from reporters, questioning his mental health, his mental capacities. And Biden was not happy with those questions. But Egypt, they actually issued a statement saying that Biden was misinformed about Egypt bordering Mexico. Yeah, Biden was spreading some misinformation by saying that Syrsky is the president of Mexico. So who do you bring in order to do some damage control from this disastrous press conference from the president of the United States? Well, Kamala Harris, of course. Who better to talk about Biden's intelligence than the vice president of the United States? Kamala Harris, commenting on special counsel Robert Hur's report, in which he called Biden too old with a bad memory, the way the president's conduct was characterized in this report could not be more factually incorrect and clearly politically motivated. So that is the statement from Kamala Harris, coming to the aid of President Joe Biden. So to recap what happened yesterday, the special counsel, they put out a report saying that Biden should not face prosecution because his brain is mush. Biden then called a press conference to prove that his brain is not mush. During this press conference, Biden said that Syrsky is the president of Mexico. This is one day after Biden claimed he spoke to deceased French President Mitterrand. And on the very same day that Biden gave this press conference, this disastrous press conference, Russian President Vladimir Putin gave a 2-hour tour de force interview with American journalist Tucker Carlson, which has now been viewed by something like 170 million people on Twitter X. Just on Twitter X. And to be more accurate, probably better to say that this interview has had 170 million impressions on Twitter X. But if you say that 20% of the 170 million, 20 or 30% of the 170 million impressions is actually a view of this video, then you are still talking about absolutely huge numbers. So let's do a clown world. And in this clown world, I'm going to put up a screenshot, a cover, a magazine cover of the publication, The New European, which actually has UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak looking like, let's go this way, looking like a clown. So in this clown world, we are going to actually see Sunak the clown. And the article, the title from this cover from The New European says, "Send off the clowns. When they're laughing at you, you know you've lost." So that is Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of the UK. They also asked, the media also asked Rishi Sunak about the Tucker Carlson Putin interview, but I forgot what Rishi Sunak said. It wasn't very important. As long as it takes and we support Ukraine and more lies and propaganda from Tucker Carlson or Putin, that's pretty much what Rishi Sunak said. But, you know, the interview from Tucker Carlson was actually carried by Fox News. And let me put up a screenshot for everyone to see. Tucker Carlson, Putin interview, and on the top left of this screenshot from Fox News, it says, courtesy of Tucker Carlson Network. Unbelievable stuff. The best thing that could have ever happened to Tucker Carlson, that could have ever happened to the media space, to the world, was him being fired by Fox News. And now Fox News is asking the Tucker Carlson Network for permission to use parts of his video interview with the Russian president. All right, that is the video, the Duran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X. And go to the Duran shop, 15% off all t-shirts. Take care.